The sky over Dry Creek broke like an old wound, red, then bruised, then gold. Wind combed through the grass with the patience of a ghost, lifting the scent of rain that would never come. Wyatt Holt rose with the dawn, same as he had for years, his body tuned to the slow pulse of the land. He fed his horses, mended a fence, listened to the sound of his solitude humming against the boards of the corral. That was his life, work in silence. But that morning the silence breathed differently, like something alive was hiding inside it. He found her near the dry riverbed, a figure collapsed among the reeds. Barefoot, shawl torn, her skin the color of sun-warmed earth. She stirred when his shadow fell across her. He took a careful step closer, hands empty. "Please don't touch me," she whispered, voice cracking like brittle paper. "I am already broken." The words struck him harder than any bullet. Wyatt froze, his fingers still in the air, not daring to bridge the space between them. Her eyes flicked open, dark, unyielding, and filled with a kind of quiet that frightened him more than her fear. She looked like she had outrun the whole world, and perhaps she had. He nodded once, slow, as if to tell her he'd heard. No questions, no rescue. Just the acknowledgement of another person's pain. That was the first thing that passed between them. Not trust, not pity, but an agreement to leave each other's ghosts alone. By the time the sun was high, he brought her to his ranch. She sat outside his barn, knees to her chest, watching the horizon as if it might take her back. He brought water and bread, set them on a crate near her feet, and walked away. Later, he found the cup empty, the crust of bread gone, though she had moved no closer to the house. Her name, she said the next morning, was Kateri. 23 years old, Apache, though she said it without pride or shame, as if the word had lost its shape in her mouth. She had fled a camp far south, a holding place for those driven from their land. She did not speak of family, only of fire and horses crying in the night. He wanted to ask more, but something in her posture, the way she held her shoulders tight, like she might disappear if she loosened her grip, told him questions would only scatter her further. The days slid by with the rhythm of small necessary things. Wyatt worked the land, Kateri kept her distance. Sometimes he'd find her feeding his mare, murmuring words in her own tongue, words that sounded like wind slipping through stone. Sometimes she vanished for hours, wandering the ridge beyond the ranch, returning only when the light faded. One evening, as Wyatt repaired the barn roof, he glanced down to find her watching him. She stood in the yard, her hands clasped, eyes unreadable. He offered a faint smile. She did not smile back, but she didn't look away either. That was how it began, the slow exchange of glances, the unspoken question lingering in the air. What does it mean to stay when leaving has always been the only safety? The town learned quickly. Dry Creek had a way of carrying news like wildfire through brittle grass. They called her that Apache girl, said Wyatt had gone soft, said loneliness could make a man foolish. In the saloon, voices rose over whiskey and dust. A woman like that brings bad luck. Wyatt didn't answer them. He had no patience for men who confused cruelty with tradition. Still, their words clung to him on the long ride home, echoing in his skull like the rattle of an empty canteen. He wondered if Kateri heard the whispers too, if that was why she had stopped singing to the mare. One afternoon he came home to find her packing the small bundle she owned. The shawl folded neatly. A piece of bread wrapped in cloth. "They will not let you keep me," she said quietly. He stepped closer, feeling the ache rise in his chest. "Who says I'm keeping you?" Her eyes lifted then, sharp as flint. "Everyone does." For a long time they stood there, the distance between them heavier than any fence post or rope. He wanted to tell her that her being there didn't feel like keeping. It felt like breathing. But words like that, spoken too soon, could break something fragile. So he said nothing. That night a storm gathered. The wind howled across the plains, dragging the scent of electricity through the cracks in the walls. Wyatt found her outside, standing barefoot in the rain, her face lifted to the sky. He called her name. She didn't move. When he reached her, she was whispering under her breath, a prayer or a memory. He caught fragments. Sister, fire, white horses. She turned to him, rain streaking her cheeks. "They said we'd be safe," she said. "The soldiers promised it. My sister believed them. I told her not to, but her voice failed. She was only 16. Wyatt didn't speak. He only listened, his breath steady. "I don't know how to stop hearing them," she said, clutching her shawl to her chest. "The screams? The guns? I can't scrub them out." He hesitated, then said softly, "Maybe broken things are what the world needs most. They let the light in." Her gaze flickered to his, full of disbelief and something tender just beginning to wake. For a moment she reached toward him, her fingers trembling in the rain. Then she drew back, shaking her head. "Don't," she whispered. "You didn't?" He simply stood beside her until the storm passed. Days later, trouble came the way it always did in places like Dry Creek, quiet at first, then burning. He woke to the smell of smoke. The barn was aflame, orange tongues climbing into the night. Someone had poured lamp oil along the boards. The fire spread fast. Waya ran into the yard, shouting for Kateri. She was already there, beating at the flames with a wet blanket, coughing through the smoke. He tried to stop her, but she pushed past him toward the horses. The sound of panicked hooves filled the air. A beam cracked and fell. She shoved him out of the way before he even saw it coming. He hit the dirt hard, scrambled to his feet and pulled her from the fire's edge. Her shawl was burning at the hem. He smothered it with his hands, the smell of scorched fabric thick in his throat. She lay against him, breath shallow. The barn collapsed behind them in a roar of heat. "Don't touch me," she gasped, eyes half-lidded, "unless you mean to stay." The words sank through the smoke, through the years of quiet, through everything he hadn't said. And he realized he already had stayed. An open prairie under a fading sunset, orange clouds stretching forever. The man repairs a fence while the woman feeds a brown mare nearby, their movements slow and mirrored. 1800s rustic clothing. He wears suspenders and dust-stained shirt, she a simple calico dress and worn shawl. They never touch, but their glances meet, soft, searching. Wind tousles her hair. A moment suspended between loneliness and awakening affection.